came here, we were discussing that PR metrics, measuring them and analyzing them is definitely a very important topic. But it is also very debatable because there is no as such universal measurement metric that one can say that, okay, this is like the sure shot metric that you can use to measure the ROI of a PR campaign. So, Himank sir, I would like to start with you first.
Sure.
And I would like to know, like, does PR really work?
Um, Now that's interesting, and let me say give my answer by giving you an example. So I work for a company called Baazi Games. We are leading when it comes to online gaming. I work there as chief comms and spokesperson. And recently, someone from my team reached out to me saying that, hey, we are having a problem. We committed a player, people who play, you know, online games on my platform. We committed that we gave him a nice hoarding in Jaipur, but we cannot due to some technical issues or whatever. Now, this person is really pissed. We committed, right? He actually went ahead and had a conversation with his entire loved ones and said, hey, I'm going to be part of the hoarding, wait and watch, and nothing is happening. You know what we did? I said, okay, fine, let me figure this out. I had a conversation with the person, figured out some nuances that makes him very unique. And we reached out to only Jaipur media, traditional per se. And we got a bunch of stories because the story was really compelling. We had data, we had valid points, and this guy has actually won medals for us, representing India at international events. And an interesting thing is that person, the player, within 2-3 days called me up and he sent me bunch of screenshots. You know what he did? What he said is, Himank sir, my mama ji, my mami ji, and few of my family members always used to bash me up. They never believed in me. They used to make fun of me saying that, hey, ये बच्चा तो gambling कर रहा है, सट्टेबाजी खेल रहा है, पत्ते खेल रहा है. That's the reality. And the same relative actually took a screenshot of all the newspaper clips and sharing it on our WhatsApp family group saying that देखो बेटे ने क्या काट कर दी. And by evening, when my father came back from office, he said, शाबाश बेटा तूने मेरी छाती चौड़ी कर दी. Do you see what? No, what I'm trying to say is, PR is always about changing the whole behavior, the way we think. You know, it's not just about what company wants me to get it done. It's what's right. We'll stand for it, and we'll try to figure out various tools and things to get it done. Now, the effectiveness of that entire campaign, and according to my leadership and everything, is way bigger than what we have done so far. It's changing the perception, right? Getting a newspaper with your picture and talking about what the person has done, the whole part of it, where Jaipur and the star of Jaipur is there. And till date, he says that, you know what, I still have people recognizing me when I move, when I go out. So yes, PR absolutely works if you do it in a right way. It was not easy, by the way. Someone who plays poker professionally, they are on a different level. Their decision making is really fast. They can evaluate who's talking and what kind of a caliber that person is based on the body language very quickly. And that's a fact. We have reports from IIT and IIM verifying that. Now to get that person into the skin and figuring it out what exactly, I had to travel to Jaipur to convince the media. Good for me, I made plenty of friends. But I hope I was able to let you understand the power of PR and what's the relevance it still has. And I'm still talking about traditional setup. Imagine what all we can do and we're still doing when it comes to the whole social media and new age media that we have.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you for sharing your views. Sumathi ma'am, what are your thoughts on, does PR really work? Is it effective?
Yeah, hi. Good afternoon, everyone. So, just taking from where he left off, right? The entire PR landscape itself has transformed and is transforming so much today that it's no longer defined as the traditional media and the newspaper clippings, right? In fact, that's a very, definitely post the pandemic, that's like a very smaller, it's a smaller component for most clients, whether it's B2B or B2C. And that is probably also what, I mean, you've not yet come to measurements, I'll talk about it, but there has definitely been a strategic shift in both marketers, business heads, CXOs, the way they look at PR and the relevance of PR today versus, you know, a decade back when there was always this debate about ad spends versus PR and PR being the poor cousin and getting the smaller budgets. We still get the smaller budgets, by the way. But I think the difference is that we are called today. I think it would be very, very foolish of companies to not have PR on their in their marketing mix today, and many don't do that either. That's the big difference. So yes, the changing landscape makes it even more relevant, and there are questions. I mean, we just had an industry event yesterday and we spoke. There are questions about what and where PR itself is moving. But needless to say, it's a very important part of the marketing mix and for organizational reputation building.
Absolutely. Thank you, ma'am. Amandeep, ma'am, what are your thoughts?
First, tell me, what do you think? Does PR really work?
Well, I would say yes, it does.
And what does the audience think? Does PR really work? So you got the answer. But anyway, so the profile of PR professionals have really, evolved in the past 10 years now. It's not about the earned media space it used to be earlier. The role is more towards the owned media space. And this question is, I'm being asked every day by my founders, does PR really work? And what if I do this article? What if I do this release? What if I do this corporate story? How is it going to help me in? Because every company right now is looking what business ROI are you driving from this PR? Because in the startup culture, that is the only thing people want. So Nitin was earlier talking about that whether PR function has really been, has become the, business function. So PR does work. In fact, PR has become the business function in the startup culture. So we can talk about that in detail as we move forward.
Sunita, ma'am, your thoughts?
Yeah, sure. So if you had asked me this question maybe a couple of years back, the answer would have been perhaps yes, absolutely. But now I think we need to bring in a caveat of what everybody has said. Is it purposeful? Is it able to achieve the purpose that you have set out to? Is it able to achieve the business objective? Because PR today does not exist in isolation anymore. It's part of the business and business conversations. I sit in the leadership team, and every time we discuss our objective beginning of the year, the question is, how do we measure it? So we measure it, let's look at it backwards. How am I really contributing to the business? How is PR, what is your business objective? And then bring the PR leg to it, right? Not the other way around, that I'm doing PR of something which does not matter to the business, which is not part of the business objective. So the moment you integrate PR with business, you show results to the organization, to the board. And I think that is where the game is changing.
Ma'am, your turn. Akanksha, ma'am.
So I think if you look at some of the traditional companies also, this question actually takes me back a few years. So I think more than a decade back, I was given the mandate to build reputation for Nokia business phones when they were launched in India at a time when BlackBerry had already taken up the market. And let me tell you, the marketing budget for E-series was zero. So it was purely built on PR. So traditional brands at that point in time also, they thought that, by bringing about a change, by bringing about a transformation in the way people live, we can actually bring about a sea of consumers who are engaged consumers, who are loyal consumers, and build a community around it. And it worked very well for us. We used various mediums. Digital was very small, social was very small at that point in time. But we leveraged community, we leveraged, the Dilbert series on office gossip, and a way bunch of different things to kind of build that brand. Now cut it to today. I've been with startups for almost 10 years now. And this question comes to us very frequently that, what does PR really work? But I think over the years I've seen that there's one thing that founders understand, that PR helps me to raise money. Because people know what I do, people understand the value of what my business model is, how scalable it is. But it's important for us to keep pushing it back, because a lot of times our budgets get squeezed and we're told that it's not okay. We can just lie low. But but I think PR becomes extremely important. It's the foundation when you want to build trust. You cannot build trust by just running marketing campaigns. So PR helps you to build trust. It helps you to build credibility. And it comes in really handy when you're going through a crisis. I'm sure everybody in the room will agree that when there is crisis, the first person you run to is your communications head. So somewhere you understand it works, but yes, some of the leaders, you have to keep pushing it back to them. So I think that's what I would like to say.
Thank you, Akanksha ma'am. I would actually like to start the next question with you, Akanksha ma'am. Sorry. So you mentioned about building trust through communication and PR. And I would like to know from you, like, while it's very easy to measure the KPIs such as website traffic and social media engagement, how does one really measure the traditional and the intangible metrics such as the brand loyalty, customer loyalty, and brand image?
So if you go to brand loyalty, customer loyalty, especially, you will have to rely on some primary research to kind of understand what is the impact you have created over a longish period of time. But if you want to showcase metrics in terms of how your PR campaign is faring, it's also evolved from just kind of putting out your ad value or your PR value to things like there are a lot of tools available, AI enabled, tech enabled tools that we use even at BharatPe to kind of understand how we are faring, not only in terms of how many stories we are getting, but also in terms of the impact or the effectiveness of these stories. So there is a tool that we use called Meltwater, which helps us understand, which evaluates something called an M score, which our leaders find very interesting, because it kind of maps the effectiveness and the impact and the reach of your every story, and it puts you into one of the 4 quadrants that it has defined against competition. So you can actually track progress over the period of time. And incidentally, when we were going through a crisis, we of course fell a number of levels there, but then it kind of, we can also see that how are we really faring well if there is a crisis, are we coming out of it, are we not coming out of it. So I think these tools help us to kind of track it on an ongoing basis. But I think for a longish, for a much better, if you want to give something like a brand, how trusted your brand is, or something like what is the loyalty of your brand, you will have to rely on more primary research to actually bring home that kind of an answer.
Thank you, ma'am. Sumita ma'am.
The big shift happening in measurement is from the traditional ad equivalence model, which to a large extent, is redundant based on the Barcelona principle, though agencies still do use it, is the shift from mere quantitative quantitative data to qualitative, right? And there is data, and there's data in abundance, and that's why I have, a slightly different opinion here. Tools help us. They are extremely helpful, especially when you're mapping social and digital, in kind of putting them all together, giving you the volume of impressions, giving you the keywords that have been used most, and so on and so forth. But I think what helps measure the impact on business and business goals is the qualitative analysis of that data and insights from that, right? For example, it's not just about the reach, right? It's about, is that messaging resonating with the target audience depending on your goals? Like she spoke about how startups, for example, one of the key goals, we work with many startups, could be like reaching out to the investor audience and raising funds and better evaluations for the company. In that case, the PR approach that you would take would be extremely different from, let's say, a consumer brands company and a mass consumer brand. So I think defining of those goals and the target audience, and therefore the messaging, and then the qualitative analysis of that is what is what makes it extremely critical and moves the needle towards actually assessing if it is impacting business and growth and the goals that were initially set.
Thank you, ma'am. Himank sir, we would like to know how do you measure customer loyalty and brand image?
That Jaipur incident that I shared with you is the biggest testimony I can have, where the person is now saying that the kind of love and affection and the kind of respect I have right now, there was only one brand that was focusing on it. Everybody gave up on him, right? He is the biggest endorser. We're trying to do some more activities. For instance, if you look at the kind of outreach we do, you won't see most of the times my co-founders and my CEO getting the limelight. That's not the point. For me, they are just tools. The biggest advocate is my player, that community. If they go out and talk about it, it makes sense. So what I follow the idea is to have a hero creation setup. I call them heroes. They are the ones who are spending and grinding and trying to make moolah out of it, not just by money, but by medals and glory. So we focus on highlighting that. And I'll tell you, for me, call it a PR success or a communication success or the matrix. I never reach out to my founders and co-founders saying that, hey, you know what, from a PR or communication point of view, this is what I did. Never. I never share any report. I never share any analysis. Because I believe that once a third party comes to my CEO and says that, hey, we have seen the hoarding at your Sultanpur metro station, it's pretty cool, my idea worked. If they say, hey, you know, we have seen your Shark Tank presence, that my idea worked. You know, if I see parents coming in saying, hey, we used to believe that my son is getting spoiled and I don't know what's going to happen, but now I'm seeing him that he's making, a steady way of making money, and also the reputation. He goes to various international tournaments and he goes live. Poker is, by the way, there are countries, they show you live tables and hands. So that is the recognition I need. There's nothing else that's most important. Now I'll give you another example. And that's the reason I pulled out my phone. I usually don't do that. I don't like the idea of carrying my phone all the time. But what I was trying to do is trying to figure out a story headline that we got today. In Mint, there is a story on my another brand within Baazi Games. One is Poker Baazi, one is Sports Baazi. Sports Baazi into fantasy and watch and play category. They have been featured. Both of my co-founders, all edition in print, and you have an online story as well. And the headline is not the typical headline that you'll see. It says that, the GST is a concern, could be a spoiled sport and all of it. This is not the headline a typical company or a typical PR person would like to have it. But we don't believe in that. My idea was to basically warm up the whole investor community, because going forward we might look for funding and all. Right? So there, if the story is out with the real numbers, talking about what exactly is happening. And even I was not aware of the story. My CEO realized that somebody has shared that story. He said, good job, I really like the story here, let's do more. I think that's the best way to figure it out. And also one more thing I would like to clarify. I don't know if it's just my thought or my fellow panelists also agree. But I feel that when we say PR, automatically we just restrict the whole outreach that we're going to expect from me. Let's say if I say Himank is going to do the PR, I get a sense that everybody's talking about just the traditional PR, newspaper, and there's another word, chapai and all of it. That's not the right way to do it. I'm here to have an effective communication, be it legal system, be it my customer care, be it my marketing, and I do that. And it's not easy. Someone said that it's not easy. People don't realize. We still get the smallest budget, though it doesn't happen with me. I decide my own budget. And for that, I need to understand their hustle, their language. For instance, the way people talk within my community. The poker lingo is very different. I cannot get it till the time I play. So I spend, I grind, I understand. I reach out to people. The customer care. How the hell they talk like that? What are the words they use? I need to understand it.
Right, sir.
And then effectively create your communication. It works.
Thank you, sir. Sunita ma'am, how do you measure brand loyalty?
Um, well, actually, the times that we're in, there are brands born every day, right, on digital, on social channel platforms. Pandemic saw a lot of brands come to life. And today, I think brand loyalty, if I look at the Gen Z, I think it's shifting so fast. But we still want to retain our consumers, our customers, right? So and in a company like ours, which is over 100 years old, we have customers who've been with us for many, many years. Generations have been consuming our products, whether it's for their pets or for human food, chocolates. The way we measure loyalty is, of course, the numbers show in terms of your sales figures, etc. But also our own in-house data or the captive data that we get, which is through our consumer care portals, through CRM, which and it's not about just looking at that dump of data of how our consumers are telling us what is wrong or what is right in our product, what are they asking, what are they complaining, what are they suggesting, but it's also about reacting and responding to them. So a consumer is writing to you because he or she is genuinely concerned about your product, about that particular product. So if you do not respond, then you've lost that consumer. So we measure, yes, through various other ways, a lot of measurement tools we have in-house. It's a huge company, and obviously we have invested in a lot of tools and tactics and strategy to make sure that the consumers keep loving our brands, keep coming back to us. But yeah, we also make sure that we're looking at this pool of data, which gives us a lot of these insights. So yeah.
Thank you ma'am. Amandeep ma'am.
So there are three ways to measure the loyalty and brand image. So one, Akanksha spoke about that you can, have a brand survey and check on the loyalty and brand image part. The second is, handy tools you have internally. So I work for a B2B fintech where, PR is directly linked to the business goals. So it cannot work in isolation. So the tools, if you have access to the tools like Google Analytics or Search Console, and if you don't have access, go to your marketing team, go to your analytics team, get the access, and find how many, out of organic traffic, how many new users are there and how many returning users are there, how many logins are happening. So if, for example, we have 4 products in the, for businesses. Say one of the customer is using corporate cards, and is he returning to us for the vendor payments also? Is he returning to us for the tax payment also? So that's how you measure the, loyalty and the, brand image. Have you carried that brand image to sell another product to the customer? And PR plays a key role here. It may not have a direct conversion through PR, but you can actually create a favorable environment for that conversion to happen or a business goal to achieve. Uh, Third way could be that actually you can check the user generated content on the third party websites. What people are talking about your brand. That's another way to check the brand loyalty and image. Yeah.
Thank you ma'am. Sumita ma'am, I would like to start my next question with you. And that is like, can you give us an example of a truly successful PR campaign that crosses your head at the moment? And why do you think it is successful?
Sure. Before, I could answer your question, if I could just add to what Amandeep said now. I think another very important component of measurement today, much like, the integration of communication itself that's happening, is the integration of measurement. Because traditionally what happened is if you were an agency and you were getting newspaper clippings, then you were just measuring, what is the value of that from the ad equivalence model or the volume of impressions or which kind of media and so on and so forth. With the digital and the social piece, for example, the amplification of what comes out on a media platform, and then, is it on that, from that link, are you getting more website traffic that particular day or around that time? And then going back to, of course, connecting the dots on, what is the footfalls that come out of that, if it is driven down to sales in that sense. being able to measure that and being able to actually also go back to customers and ask, you know, where is the brand awareness increasing from? Is it, are you reading more about the company in case the objective is brand awareness, right? So that integration of the entire measurement, you know, which should be owned by communication teams within the company most often, because they have access to all pieces of the data, right? So like she rightly said, you know, whether it's from marketing or internally, because agencies sometimes, and since I come from the agency side, may not have access to that data. So, you know, often, you know, you're slightly handicapped on how much you can give. But going back to your question, you know, we just finished a grueling exercise of putting together like an annual report for a client of ours. It's a German leading manufacturer in the automotive space. They work with some of the largest brands, and we've been working with them on their PR in the India market. And we had to, the extent of that, and that's where I said, you know, the extent of the depth of measurement today is far more, because when you speak about a successful campaign, we of course had, just going by the reach, you know, the volume of impressions were about 3,000 plus during the year for different business divisions, because they are a large, you know, they have multiple divisions. And then we had to, you know, get to the depth of which division, what kind of messaging was more, in which kind of publications and platforms was it out, what is the traffic, what is the domain strength of those platforms, where, you know, the share of voice with other competitors, and we were a good 70% above their next closest competitor in terms of the share of voice. I think the domain strength, and out of the 3,000 or that I spoke to you about, I think more than half, almost 3/4 of it, was what we would classify in the Cat A with a higher reach and all of that. So, you know, this exercise happens on a quarterly basis. So you kind of keep mapping whether you're moving towards a direction, and then the company comes back and says, no, see, this business division is doing well for us and it's the most important. So we need more messaging in this segment, or we need more messaging in, you know, with these kind of platforms more than, you know, so it's all very interconnected, because you need to each time think through what are the goals, what is the messaging, what is the reach, and then finally, even if the reach is there, for example, on social, it's not just about the reach, right? It's about the engagement, and it's about what is the kind of response that you are getting from your audience and your community that you're building there. So, yeah, I think I do not want to name, because we have very strict NDAs with some of these clients, so I can't name the client.
That's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. Akanksha, ma'am, like one successful campaign that you would like to talk about.
So I'll try to talk about two, and very quickly. So I think if I have to look at a brand in the startup world which has done a great job of doing PR, is a brand called Dream 11. The reason being, it came into the industry with a totally new concept of fantasy games, and I'm sure Himank is going to say, ki, why not us? But anyways, they came with a new concept. Cricket is, of course, a religion, but there is a lot of controversy around it if India doesn't play well. But they kind of had a very integrated, well thought through communications campaign, where they very strategically position their founders as thought leaders. They also smartly push the you know, the entire concept of the brand or the business model to the right TA, and they also of course played well with the brand ambassadors to kind of create that recall for the brand, and the connect with the brand is huge. So I think it's done a great job. Also on the public affairs side, it's done a great job. The other one is a campaign that we run at BharatPe, and the reason why I think it's a great campaign is because of the validation we get and the plot that we get internally. It was a digital campaign, we still running. What we did, and the reason I thought of it is because Himank also mentioned about building heroes. So we started with a campaign called Transforming Bharat, where we actually, so BharatPe works with offline merchants who are small shop owners, and nobody really was bringing out their story when I started out with this idea. And we wanted to showcase their stories their way, totally unscripted, but get their stories to kind of inspire a whole bunch of youth to kind of start out on their own. Over the last 2 years, it's done phenomenally. It's well. It's one of the campaigns that's won number of awards. Only works organically. Works only on digital. We've shot about 30 merchants in 15 cities across the country. Every story brings a different aspect of life. Now we actually also shoot their family, so it gives a little more perspective of how we are making an impact. And I think as purpose-driven campaigns become more important, I see this being a campaign that this kind of campaigns becoming more mainstream in the times to come. So that's the second campaign.
Thank you, ma'am. Amandeep, ma'am.
Can I just add one
Sure.
part from my end? Amandeep, that's okay. I'll quickly give you 2 instances related to the impact and all of it. One was Xiaomi. Now Xiaomi, for the first 5 years, you know what's the budget in terms of marketing? 0. And why am I saying it? Because I was part of the team. I was taking care of the PR. I was leading it. For the first 5 years, there was 0 budget for marketing. They don't understand. Now they do. It's been 10 years. But the first 5 years, the kind of positioning they established when they became #1 in smartphone, it was all PR. The idea of larger than life PR events where you have this idea of me fans. You won't see anybody in terms of consumer tech apart from Apple that can call as Xiaomi fans, me fans. You don't see Samsung fans. You don't hear Haier or Huawei fans. No other brand has it except for Apple and Xiaomi. You know, that's the whole legacy we built on. So it's all PR for the first 5 years. The testimony is that within 5 years, they became #1. They don't have that position now because that's the game it happens. And last but not the least, the recent Maldives, if I'm saying it, pronouncing it, Maldives, right? The whole Maldives incident and how Ease My Trip leveraged that idea, I think that was beautiful. Now we can debate that it could be a partial PR, partial marketing driven idea, but the effectiveness and the way they've communicated, it was beautiful. They did not need to reach out to anybody. It was a pull mechanism where I've seen that story getting featured in a prime time. So you just need to be, and the reason I mention all these things is, I believe effective campaigns maybe started with PR, maybe started with marketing, but they all need to come together to work, you know, in a balance to achieve that kind of recall. So yeah.
Amandeep, ma'am.
So the goal should be very clear for what the campaign is. So there are 3 parameters to any campaign. What is top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, and the bottom of the funnel. So top of the funnel is mainly for the brand awareness. Middle of the funnel is for brand consideration, and bottom of the funnel is for conversion. So PR campaigns mostly fall under the top 2, top of the funnel and the middle of the funnel. So you can't expect PR campaign to have the touch point at the bottom of the funnel. I would like to give an example. When I was in Policy Bazaar, so one of the project was given to me to build the category for 4G ULIPs, because the ULIPs before 2010 had a very bad reputation because 40% of the money was going to the insurance agents and there was not much returns on the ULIPs, and people were simply not buying ULIPs because of that. And mutual fund was the competitor in the competition to the 4G ULIPs. So we actually not only did earned media through PR, we also used own media channels. We started a webinar series. We started a campaign called Nivesh Kar Befikar. And that campaign, we asked insurance companies to come on board, be part of the campaign, and have a brand awareness why 4G ULIPs are better. And of course, this was backed by the PR, where opinion pieces were going out, and the comparisons were going out with mutual funds. And the consideration, gradually was happening when people were buying and sharing their experience. We created a separate portal also, a subdomain, niveshkarbefikar.policybazaar.com, and where we were, uploading all the content, having a lot of blogs there. We also created a actually sales form there. If you're interested, get in touch with us. And surprisingly, as I said, that bottom of the funnel doesn't add, PR. And that was an exceptional campaign, added 1 CR through PR campaign to, insurance premium. So.
That's great, ma'am. Sunita, ma'am.
Sure. So there are so many examples from Mars itself. We have such iconic products, and we build all our campaigns, whether it's PR or a lot of ad campaigns as well, rest on our purpose. And I'll give you 2 examples from Mars, which during the COVID in India. One is from our Mars Pet Care family, from that segment, where we make pedigree and viscous. So during the COVID, when government was, e-commerce was delivering products, and one of the essential, and we didn't find pedigree in the essential list. And there were a lot of pet parents who wanted pedigree, who were feeding pedigree to their pets. There were pets all over the country who wanted it, but it wasn't getting delivered. So, and here, the objective was very clear, was twofold. One is, of course, to make sure that it goes into the essential list so that the sales go up, the numbers, we are able to drive the growth numbers. But second is better world for pets. So we wanted to live that principle of, that purpose of creating a better world for pets. So there were a number of legs which were led to that campaign. It wasn't really a campaign per se, but I would say the touch points that we created, the engagement that we created, ultimately led to not just sales, but also made sure that the pets were thriving with the products that they were used to. So that is one example. And second is, and this actually became an example of how you contribute to the business, right? So the business wanted sales to go up, pedigree to be back on shelves, to make sure that pets get what they need. And the second example is again from our confectionery, the gums portfolio. During the COVID, people had stopped chewing gums, and we were not able to sell gums as well. Again, it was not part of the essentials list. But we started a campaign called Get Fresh Behind the Mask. So even if when you're wearing a mask and you want to stay fresh, why not have a gum? So that also sort of boosted sales, not just sales, but also, it was a great campaign by itself in terms of talking about freshness behind the mask. So these are 2 great examples. So the learning was that make sure that you have your objective and goal, like Amandeep said, that your goals have to be, you have to be super sure of what you're trying.
Thank you, ma'am. Given the time we have, I'll just go ahead to our last question, and I would request our panelists to answer this question in a minute. And the question is is brands marketing success solely dependent on the immediate ROIs that you're able to derive? Or should there be a greater emphasis on the metrics that demonstrate long-term brand health? Himank sir, we'd like to go with you first.
Coca-Cola has done that, and I'm sure you guys are aware of it. If you go to a restaurant or say a movie hall, you mostly see Pepsi. You don't see Coke. And I'm guessing why, because they don't need that. Customer wants it. It's not that they want to sell it. With Pepsi, it's otherwise, right? So that's the biggest thing that, you need to take time, build on it. And it's not just happen by pumping in billions of dollars, by just flashing ads across TV channels and wherever the screen is available. There are, you have specific, significant, and all collaborative efforts that have gone into to build that kind of a brand, where you rely on it. Apple has done that. There's not even a single thing. I was just writing something. My last article was on that Samsung has actually been dethroned from being #1. After 12 years, worldwide shipment, Apple has become #1 in smartphones. And it didn't happen just like that. And Apple, if I'm not wrong, they don't make or initiate something for the first time. They always adopt. They always take care of it. They take inspiration. And most of the time it's Samsung. But look at the way they have done it. be it touch screen, be it the whole integration of services, whatever they do, people follow that. They don't start in the beginning, but they lead it. And it takes time. So honestly, if you ask me, I didn't think any communication idea or a plan should have just very small short-term thing. You should always have short-term, mid-term and long-term results and the kind of ROI, the kind of impact you feel. And we have these brands to look up to.
Thank you, sir. Akanksha ma'am.
So I don't think it's any longer about immediate ROI, even like he rightly mentioned. Even, a lot of ad campaigns nowadays are not like what is the immediate ROI, but they are built with a larger vision in mind and a long-term brand building, brand equity building standpoint. Coming to PR also, I think the measurement, of course, you should measure every campaign from the standpoint of did it deliver in terms of effectiveness, did it deliver in terms of the reach. But what is important is to kind of track it from a long-term perspective, understand, are you really getting the return on communication objectives? Are you able to build the reputation of the brand? Are you able to drive trust? Are you able to build an image that, can kind of stand tall when there is a little crisis that comes your way. And hence it's important to look at it from a long-term perspective, because I'm sure you will be hit by little roadblocks here and there. There might be a customer complaint that might come, which just kind of gets aggravated. There might be something negative that comes in the news. So, if you track it over a period of time is when you will be able to really understand the impact of or measure the brand loyalty, brand image, is what I think.
Thank you. Sunita ma'am.
Yeah, I agree with what Akanksha has just said, that it's built over a period of time. It can't be instant gratification. You can't really measure the ROI of a brand immediately. But in a crisis situation, it differs. In a crisis situation, when you launch a PR campaign, you need to measure it. Maybe 3 weeks. You need to have a short-term window for it to really see whether it's working, whether you're able to turn around that sentiment. So yeah, while in a general sense, your PR campaigns have to have that long-term vision and that timeline, but when it comes to crisis and you're running a PR campaign to mitigate that, I think that requires a short-term window. Yeah.
So I will tell you the practical scenario. We work in a fast-moving business environment, and where, of course, management is looking for short-term results, because board is sitting on your head and asking for numbers every month and the impact every month. That is definitely important, but it has to be a combination of both long-term and short-term. It cannot be you just have short-term results, because that is not going to sustain your business. And with the long-term, you can, the way I mentioned earlier, you can have a loyalty built for the customer and the business to grow organically. So, thank you.
Sumita ma'am.
Yeah. So PR, by the nature of it, the key goal is to build trust and reputation in the long run. Yes, it's important today to show ROI, and like all of them said, there need to be short-term and mid-term goals, and each campaign we can evaluate. But it needs sound business leaders and communication leaders to know that the real purpose is to prepare for growth for the future and to build an institution out of organizations. That's the primary goal of that lives on beyond your marketing campaigns of today. And that builds a personality for your brand which resonates over multiple years. So given that as the key goal, and multiple stakeholders at all points of time, your stakeholders are never your customers alone, it is your investors, your shareholders, your employees, and multiple others. The larger society, you're doing a lot of work in sustainability. Today ESG has become important. So there are so many different aspects to PR and building reputation for an organization. And therefore, it needs to be long run. And the answers are never in the smaller mid-term and short-term metrics. The answers will always be in long-term brand equity, which has to go through the traditional research mechanisms as of now. The tools don't capture all of that.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much, Sumita ma'am. Thank you, our respected panelists, for sharing your insights and for giving us your time. We're really grateful to you for that. Thank you.